Hi everyone. In this lesson, we're going to draw out some ideas for a Valentine's card or photo holder that we can put a personalized message into and also either hold up some kind of Valentine's card or a photo, or even, if we want, a lithophane that we've 3D printed ourselves. So we need something that will be a base with a slot cut in it that can hold a thin piece of card or a photo. We could make something as simple as a circle, but since this is Valentine's Day, I think I will make something out of our easily found heart shape, and we'll just add more hearts to it to make it more complicated. Whoop, these drawings are getting really weird. Now it just looks like a four-leaf clover. So I'll have to add a little bit of complexity in here, and we can make one large central heart that will act as our holder. And if we stand it up, so we have a heart shape standing up out of the ground, we can put our slot in the back here so that we can have our picture or card sticking up and a base around it. And then we can even add ourselves a message in there. Next, I will show you how to design this stand made entirely of hearts. We are going to put together this cheesy Valentine, which will hold up a card or a photo and is made entirely of hearts. Let's get started. I'm going to move our hearts here out of the way, and we're going to start again with a single heart shape. So we're going to be making a base that is somewhat circular. I think I want the base to be a little bit thinner than this heart starts out. So we're going to cut this in half. Instead of 10, we'll make it 5. So the thickest part of our base is 5 millimeters, which will be sturdy enough. And let's just change this to red so it looks right. And we'll go ahead and duplicate our heart. And then I'm going back over to the mirror tool on the other side and flipping it up and down. Now I'll take my second heart here and I'm going to use the arrow keys to move it down. And I want the base to be 100 millimeters across so that it has a nice wide stand, but it's not too large. So let's select both of these and take a look at their dimensions. So they are 78 millimeters from side to side. That's close enough. I think I'll just move this one down. There we go. And then select this. Now they're 90. All right. This is going to be the maximum distance of my base, which is going to be circular. So let's make our first circular row of hearts. With both of them selected, I'm going to click duplicate again. And down here, I'm going to click on our rotate tool. And let's see how far we need to rotate so our hearts aren't touching. That way we can actually see the shape of the heart. If we overlap them, they're not going to look too much like hearts. If I go, the very minimum is 45, and it's just barely touching. Let's try that out. Once I've made my one rotation move, I'm going to click on duplicate and repeat. We're going to get another one and another one. Now we have a circle of hearts all around. They are just barely touching at the edges. So they wouldn't likely hold together very well if we printed them. That's okay. We'll fill our interior area with hearts too, and we'll use our duplicate and repeat trick. So I'm going to drag a box around my first row of hearts, first circle of hearts here. I'm going to click on duplicate. Just going to make a copy of everything all in the exact same place. Now carefully, I have to hold down Shift and Alt. Shift will make your scaling uniform, so you can't squash your shape. It will scale down in all directions at once. And holding down Alt will make it scale down from the center. So now I can move my hearts down so that they are sticking out into the middle a bit. Not too much. Then I'll go to my rotate handle and we'll rotate these one notch over so that they look a little different. Now I've done two different moves. I've scaled it in and I've rotated it. And if I click on duplicate and repeat, it's going to scale them in and rotate them again. We use this trick to make a very, very finely detailed center to this, but I don't want to do that since I'm going to add a large shape in the middle here. I think this is enough. 2 rows is enough to solidify our shape, and we'll get some nice little nifty details on the inside there. I'm going to click an empty space to stop remembering my repeats for duplicate and repeat. I'll click on another heart here, and we'll go ahead and duplicate that. I'm just going to use my arrow keys to move it down into the center. Then we are going to make this thing rather tall. I don't actually care exactly how tall it is. Because I want to tilt it over, I'm going to cut off the bottom side, however much goes outside of my work plane. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger too. I think we need more space to put a message on it. I'll hold down Shift and stretch this whole thing out a bit. And look at that. Looks like I should have held down Alt to keep that in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Shift, Alt, and drag one of these out. Now we have a bigger heart in the center, but it's much too tall. So let's go ahead and grab our up and down handle and move it down into the floor. And then we will rotate so we are 45 degrees. So we have our heart sticking out at 45 degrees. There'll be an easily readable message from above. And we can drag our up and down handle to get it further down. We just want to be able to see the shape of the heart. And we want this to be a little bit in the middle. So because we've made this long shape, we know that this is going to go all the way down to the ground. If I made this too short, we might have a gap behind it, which I don't want. I'm going to use my arrow keys to just nudge this back. We can't use the align tool to center it, because the center of this shape is not actually where we want it to be. We're going to ignore the part that goes under the ground. And line this up however we like so that it looks good. And we've got our canvas there for our message. And we have a little bit of a problem. If I grab the text, put it out here, I'm going to have to lift it up and rotate it and try to nudge it into the face of this in order to cut out my message. Now I could have done this to my original heart before scaling it up and rotating it into place. That's a possibility. But since this is a simple project, let's take a look at the work plane tool. If we drag this work plane out, you can see this little cone with a blue square around it, and every object that I touch, it becomes orange and it moves to line up with that surface. So let's drop it right on the surface of the heart. Now our blue grid disappears and an orange grid shows up, And that grid is lined up with the surface that we placed it on. Now that this is the new work plane, everything I drag out will be lined up with the work plane and right exactly where we want it to be. You can see that Tinkercad keeps all of its handles lined up with the work plane. So because I have this tilted, all of these handles are tilted as well, and I can change the shape the way that I want it to. So let's go ahead and give ourselves a message. This time, it's just going to be, let's make that capital, LOL. I'm going to click on Hole here so that I can use this to cut out my letters rather than having them stick up from the surface. And we'll change their size and stretch them to fit inside of our heart area. Once we get our message ready, we like how it looks. Remember that this surface is on the top, so I need my hole to cut into the surface of our heart. So we're going to look at this from the side, and we can see our up and down arrow is still lined up with this work plane. So I can move it away from the heart or towards the heart. And I want to go down until it's -2 or -3, just enough to cut the lines in there. We'll go to -3. So that's 3 millimeters in. That is going to cut that shape. Great. Now that I have my design ready, I'm going to go ahead and put the work plane back where it belongs. So if I click on work plane and I drag it to an empty space, you can see the blue rectangle. It's going to turn right back into the blue work plane. Since this is the floor I want to plan for, I'm going to go ahead and make a new hole. So let's go up to the top, grab this box that's already set to hole, and we'll make it as big as our design. I'm going to use this to get rid of the part that sticks out under the floor. So let's grab our height handle where we can make this thing taller, and we will go all the way down past the floor as far as we want. Make sure that our box hole here highlights the entire area that is underneath. And now we can go ahead, click on an empty space, drag it around our design, and click on Group. Now that we have cut the holes out of everything, as we added the solids together, we've got our letters cut into the surface of our heart, and we've got the bottom, which is perfectly flat. So far, so good. Now we have a little stand with a ridiculous message on it. But if we want to make this into a stand for a card or photo, we're going to need to cut one more hole in it. So let's take out a box. And we need this box to be the width of the object that we're going to put in here. If we're thinking of a paper card or a photo, we can just go with 2 millimeters. If you have done our lithophane project and you have printed a lithophane, it's going to have a thickness that you set up during slicing. So a lithophane, our default settings were 3 millimeters, and that means the thickest part is going to be 3 millimeters and the lighter parts are be thinner, which means you're going to need a hole that's at least 3 millimeters wide. That way you can fit your lithophane in there. There we go. Let's do this and make it 3. And we're going to need this hole to be a bit longer. Whoops. Stay at 3. There we go. And we're going to need to raise it up. So let's move with the arrow keys and just nudge it around. We don't want to cut out part of the front of the heart, so we're going to make sure that we go back just enough that we can see the shape of the heart. And maybe not quite that deep. Raise this up. And lastly, we can tilt this back just a little bit so that our picture or card will stand tilted a little bit away from the message. I'm just going to rotate this, and it doesn't matter too much, just so that it tilts back and it won't accidentally bend folding over forward. All right. Now we'll group our design with our final cut. And we have a notch in the top of the heart that's wide enough to fit the object that we want to set in it. Next, we'll set this up for slicing. Let's go ahead and double check to make sure that the bottom of our design is flat. And click on export. We'll export only the selected shape as an STL file. Then we'll head over to Cura to slice it. Now, if we designed this correctly, we should not need anything special. Take a look at this, and all of our lines face upward. We don't have any red marks on any of our surfaces because they aren't overhanging. So because our upward facing things go up at an angle, they're all self-supporting. The bottom is completely blue since we've cut it perfectly flat to the floor. So we don't need any supports, and we can go for a standard resolution and 20% infill. Slice away. At nearly 100 millimeters across, still a pretty big print, so it's still going to take some time. But let's click on preview just to double check. See that our inner shapes, see if I turn on our line type, you can see our infill, and all of our pieces are joined together. There's a couple of interesting shaped holes here in the base, but nothing that is going to cause anything to fall apart. So let's save our G-code file, and we're ready to upload. See you next time.